Here at Paddy Power, we're the home of the Money Back Special, with some incredible offers every single week. Check out the website or app today. Terms and conditions apply. 18 plus, begambleaware.org.
Hello and welcome to this Monday Postcast. I'm Maddie Plell, joined in the studio by Graham Rodway and Nick Watts. It's lovely to have a full studio again. And Paul Binfield has also joined us from Paddy Power. Nice to see you back with us, Binners. Now, before we get into day one of Glorious Goodwood, there's the rather small matter of the weekend to look back on, and I'd say probably one of the best races, flat races anyway, I've been lucky enough to see in my lifetime. Enable beating Crystal Ocean in the King George. Just a magnificent race, a magnificent performance from two great horses, G-Rod.
It was a fantastic race, yeah. They both ran up to the levels that we were going to hope they would, which doesn't always happen when you get two stars lining up in a race like that. And they served up a fantastic finish. I did love the way that as they turned into the straight, James Doyle appeared to be in the better position than Frankie and was travelling well. But Frankie was so aware of that and he quickly jumped on him and got right on his shoulder and made a race of it early so that Doyle couldn't get first run on him. You know, it was a great piece of riding, but he is the man for the big occasion. And Enable is the filly for the big occasion too. And what a horse she has been.
Yeah, exactly. I thought it was a really intelligent ride because he wasn't in a great position. He was kept out wide. He was further back than ideally he probably would have wanted. I think he only hit her at the 2 furlong pole. It was clever, wasn't it? He didn't want to give her more of a race than he had to.
What's been one of the criticisms a lot of people have said to me about Enable is that she wins, but everything seems to go her way. And I always used to say, well, maybe it's just because she's that good. She's got the ability to get herself into that right position. You know, when they were saying, well, what about the draw last year in the Arc? She was in the right place. See, her class wasn't. This race, not everything did go her way. She was drawn out wide. She had a really tough task coming from a long, long way behind. And she made it look easy. It's a sign of a real top class horse, which no doubt she is.
Yeah, she just keeps overcoming any obstacle that's put in front of her, doesn't she? And some people arguing she doesn't seem as explosive as in her 3-year-old season, but I'd argue she wasn't facing horses like Crystal Ocean back then anyway, and the handicap have got it spot on.
Yeah, I don't think that's entirely fair, really. I think, if you're a horse that's been around for a few seasons as she has now, and she has had adversity to put up with. She had a bad injury last season which kept her off the track. This time last year she wasn't even on the racecourse. So to go and win an Arc on the back of just winning an all-weather race at Kempton, and then obviously going on to America and winning over there. And then coming back, people thought she might be vulnerable first time up in the Eclipse. She wasn't. The cards didn't fall right for her, as G-Rod said at the weekend. Aidan O'Brien added a new dimension to the race with the pace angle, and he didn't really have anything good enough to challenge the big two, and I think he realised that, so his only option was to try and turn the race into a war and try and set up Anthony Van Dyke, who blew out anyway. But she overcame all of that, and yeah, I mean, it's fantastic. Like you said, all the oldies go on about Bustino and Grundy, and now even I'm not old enough to quite have been there for that one. But so we've got something, of comparable nature to be able to talk about as well. It's, maybe it wasn't quite the same as Grundy and Bustino, but there were echoes of it in the way the race was run with the strong pace element from O'Brien, and then, as G-Rod said, it's just great when so often these races are billed as matches and one of them doesn't turn up. It was just great to have them both on absolute top form. They're both going for it in the final furlong, and that's what we wanted to see, and it was great. And yeah, you can't crab her. She just gets the job done. She's got amazing longevity. You can take her anywhere. She can go to France. She can go to America.
First time she'd run at the same track, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And just extraordinary. And we're lucky to have her around. We're lucky to have Frankie around and roll on the Arc. I hope she can recover from this. And I think Connections are talking about giving her a bit of a break. She would have had to go deep at the weekend, even if she made it look easy. Crystal Ocean isn't an easy horse to beat, so hopefully she has a bit of time off and comes back in the autumn, and it'll be a great advertisement for racing and for the Arc to have the build up to hopefully the hat-trick bid in October.
Yeah. Fingers crossed she stays sound. We did a little jury afterwards whether you were more or less confident that she'd win the Arc after her King George performance. Some people put off it was such a close finish, obviously not taking anything away from either of them. Some bookies, I think Paddy's or even one of them Binners, pushed them out a little bit, but they were forced to retract those prices, weren't they?
Yeah, we kept her at 13-8 for a wee while, Maddie. Very popular when we did push her out to that, but we had to go back to 6-4 in the end. which looks a fair price. Must give the lads from Maidenhead a quick mention, Maddie. They all backed Enable. Huge celebrations in the Thatch Cottage and the Ark pubs in Maidenhead on Saturday night, and they're hoping for a repeat with Hermosa in the Nassau on Saturday.
Yeah, the Nassau should be a good contest actually, but I don't think she'll have anything on Enable at this stage in her career. Just jumping back to future targets, John Gosden, you sort of touched on it once. He has said maybe not going to York for either the Yorkshire Oaks or the Juddmonte because she had a hard race. Possibly she could just go back to the Ark. Do you think that'll be a bit of a shame, when if British racegoers don't get to see her on home soil again?
It would be a shame, but I think it's entirely understandable. It's like I said a minute ago, I don't think you can win a race like that. In a war with Crystal Ocean in the last couple of furlongs without having to go very deep. And yeah, Frankie might have only touched her with the whip, but that doesn't mean she wasn't working very, very hard to get that race nailed down and to win it, because Crystal Ocean just wouldn't go away. You could easily lose an Ark. You've got to think back from the Ark now. That's obviously where they want to go. They want to do, get in history books and get this treble in the bank. So you could easily lose it by running her too quickly after this race and not having her best for the autumn. I think the best chance of her winning in France in October is by giving her a good bit of time off now. And I think she's earned it. I mean, after a race like that at the weekend, and which came quickly enough after the eclipse as well, I think she's earned a little bit of a rest now. Yeah,
I think that's fair. Binners, just run us through the rest of the horses in the Ark.
Okay, Maddie, I was just having a look at the Juddmonte International, Enable 6-4 for that as well. Sotsas is 6-1 second favourite, Crystal Ocean 8-1, 9-1 Aidan O'Brien's Japan, 12-1 Valgeist, who ran a cracker at Ascot as well, and 14-1 Bar.
Can anything beat her in the Ark, G-Rod? Caught you unawares there. You were scrolling, looking at Goodwood, getting your tips ready. I saw you.
I'm unsure, really. I obviously hope that she wins, and I think that she probably will win. I don't see what's going to beat her, but it wouldn't surprise me if she got beat, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, covering all your bases there. But yeah. Are you sort of looking at anything further down the betting? What's as a value bet, or just enjoy it and watch it?
Something could emerge from the trials, couldn't it? Much further on down the line. I'm sure O'Brien will still have be taking pot shots at her with something. Maybe not Anthony Van Dyke now. He seems to have gone AWOL since that Derby win.
Yeah, surprised to see him shuffled out the back door, would you?
Yeah, maybe a horse like Sir Dragonet could come back into play in the second half of the season, who we've kind of forgotten about a little bit, but ran very well in the Derby and's got very little experience. He's the kind of horse that he's in the right hands that could just blossom at any time, and it could be the autumn that sees him really come to the fore. But yeah, I mean, from a purist point of view and from a racing story and the angle as well, the treble would just be an amazing feat.
Yeah, it would. I think we all want to see it. I'm quite interested next time we see Sotsas, see how he runs. I'm not saying there's necessarily any juice in his price, but it was a good win in France, so he could be the one to keep the eye on these 3-year-olds, especially the fillies.
There's going to be a huge sort of crowd going over, isn't there, to Longchamp for the Ark this year. Obviously last year was their first year having it back at the new track, and I must admit I'm quite tempted to do the trip myself. I bet there's going to be more support for Enable there than there has been for any horse at Longchamp since that Japanese horse came over, Deep Impact or whatever it was called. I mean, she is going to be roared home by all the British on Ark Day, and I'd love to be there.
Yeah, it's brilliant for what it can do to the sport. We'll have a look at some of the rest of the action from Ascot then. Raising Sand, he won the big handicap. Big gamble on him with the rain coming down, of course, G-Rod, and he duly got the better of Queso. It was also a big gamble.
Yeah, I watched that race and I got to like a furlong now. I was like, oh no, not Raising Sand again. I know he's a lovely old horse, and he turns up and dances every dance and never runs a bad race. But as a punter, you just think you're always looking. He's like the solid option, isn't he?
Here we go. He is the solid option. Yeah.
Everyone loves him around there, and I'm always looking to take on those sorts of horses because they're always well found in the market. But fair play to Raising Sand. He really did finish off with a flourish. The horse that caught my eye was coming up the stand side, Rip Off, who I've tipped a few times before. I mean, he is without doubt well handicapped and coming right back to form and ran nicely for David Ellsworth. I think that Rip Off is the one to take from the race.
Okay, did you have any horses enter the notebook, Watsy?
Not really enter the notebook because they're easy winners. So they're not notebook horses. But I thought the job that Mark Johnson's done with LR Cam this season, he was going nowhere last year. He looked as though he was going to drop off the radar. So for them to get him back, I wasn't expecting the performance he put in at York at the weekend. I thought he won. Well, he did win very, very easily indeed. And he's starting to belatedly live up to his pedigree. He's by Frankel out of their 1,000 Guineas winner attraction. I'd be interested in him at York if he goes to the war meeting there for the international.
They said the Judd
they were talking about. He won, in a way that I just didn't expect at all. And I think another horse that won at Ascot, who's just come into himself, is Flashcard, who I've noted a couple of times this season. Obviously didn't back him at the weekend when he hosed up, but I think Oisin Murphy said afterwards that, they think a bit of him, but he's only really just starting to come to himself now. If that's the case, then, this could be the tip of the iceberg. He could win, at least a couple more in the next few months.
Yeah, Group 1 action. We had lots yesterday. The pre-Rothschild was won by Lawrence. Good to see her back in flying form, Watsy.
Yeah, it's good. Nice for the Carl Burke team. Working for the Weekender. He does a weekly column with us at the moment, and it's been a very stop-start campaign for him. He hasn't been able to get much flow into the season. The horses haven't been running as well as he would have liked to. So for his kind of flagship horse to get back to Group 1 winning ways, it might not be the most impressive performance ever. It might not be the Lawrence of old, but she still got the job done. It'll still give them something to aim at for the rest of the season. I think they're talking about maybe going back over to America right at the end of the campaign. And whatever she does now, she's been a great horse for him. But yeah, no, it's for a team that's kind of been a bit hit and miss this season, to get a race like that under the belt must be really, really pleasing. He'll be delighted. Yeah,
I was quite interested in Earthlight. He made it 3 out of 3 on that card, so he could be one to follow. G-Rod, other international action, we had Dancer Terrier winning in Germany. He put up a good performance.
He's an old favourite of ours, isn't he? I remember chatting about him when he ran, was it in the Brigadier Gerard, I think it was, or one of those races. Did it nicely. The one thing about Lawrence, I know that she wins over a mile, but to my eye, she definitely looks like she wants further. I'm absolutely convinced she'll be a better horse over a mile and a quarter and a mile and a half, but they keep going over a mile and she did the business nicely. But I would just love to see her back over further. Obviously, she has won plenty of races over further and run well. I think she was second, or might have even won the Yorkshire Oaks last year over a mile and a half. But connections seem keen to stick to a mile with her, which I find a bit strange. But maybe
they tried it in the Yorkshire Oaks, didn't they, behind Sia Class? And I don't know, maybe they thought she didn't really stay. Maybe it wasn't her best performance on the day. But I think that's her 6th Group 1 now. I mean, there's plenty of horses that have been, I think you could argue, better than her and probably not won one. So.
Oh, she's an absolute superstar. There's no doubt about it. But I'm fairly convinced that when she comes up against top milers, she's going to come a cropper like she did in the first couple of starts of the season, because I just think she lacks the raw pace that some of those top milers have got. But take nothing away from her. She did it nicely against her own sex yesterday, and she is top class, but I just think she has more to offer if they go up in distance. That's my opinion on her.
Yeah, she certainly races like that, doesn't she? That sort of win in the pre-Rothschild was almost a replay of her Pre-St. Allery run with You running on really strongly at the end, but the order remained the same. Binners, I know that obviously Dancer Terrier now is in new ownership, just back to him, and he's Cox Plate bound perhaps, but have you got any prices on him and Lawrence, or indeed any other winners from the weekend?
I haven't really got any prices on those, Maddie. Interestingly, Dancer Terrier has entered it in the Irish Champion Stakes, and Lawrence could run on the same day. She's entered in the Matron Stakes, so possibly Carl Burt will keep Lawrence over the mile.
Yeah, all exciting things to ponder for the second half of the season, that's for sure. We'll take a quick break now before we have a look at Goodwood Day 1.
What's my horse's handicap? The fact that you're backing him? Everyone loves a newbie. That's why Paddy Power Games are giving all new customers 60 free spins on daily jackpot games. New Paddy Power Games customers only, 1 per customer. T's and C's apply. 18+. BeGambleAware.org.
Welcome back to this Monday Postcast. As promised, we're going to have a look at Glorious Goodwood and the first day, which gets underway tomorrow. Plenty of racing on ITV, of course. The first race is at 1:50. It's the Unibet handicap over a mile and 2. One of my favourite horses runs in this race, but I won't let me steal the lads' thunder. Binners, can you run us through the betting for this one, please?
Yes, Maddie, we've got Setting Sail as 130 favourite in the opener at Goodwood. Then we go 15-2 Beringer. A few horses on 10-1, Giselle, Nick Klaus and Soto Sizzler, who you're very keen on. And it's 12-1 Bar.
Oh, Binners, you announced it. I was going to leave it till last. Yeah, I'm a big Soto Sizzler fan here. Horse who's done me a lot of favours in the past, and be interesting to see how he gets on at this trip. Not necessarily sure it'll suit him, but strong pace should suit him. Won at the meeting last year. Anyway, Watsy, now I've got that out of the way. Who do you fancy?
G-Rod's going to hate this, but I actually quite like the market leader. He's probably fundamentally opposed to market leaders in handicaps, but I'm not tipping for the RP tomorrow, so I don't have to worry so much about price. I'm just going to tip who I think is going to win the race. Setting Sail, has got a good profile for me. He's only had 7 starts, so he's quite unexposed and really improved the last couple of runs. He started off the year over a mile and 4, but he's come back to a mile and 2. And I thought it was a really good run last time at York behind Pivoine in another kind of one of these big field handicaps. So he's proved he handles the track. I think there's more to come from him. I think, he's got a very unexposed profile and, he's got a lot in his favour. So I'm quite keen to row in with him. G-Rod will tell me I'm talking nonsense, but
he's a great big horse, isn't he? So you get the feeling there might be a bit more to come throughout the season. Well, I do anyway.
Well, he's very well bred as well. His dad was a French Oaks winner, West Wind. So obviously he's progressing at a rate of knots, and I think if he can follow up that. And he has been following, he's been putting together a consistent sequence of runs this season, which shows that he's progressive. So if he can follow up that good run at York last time, I think he's the right market leader, and I think he's got a good chance.
Yeah, G-Rod, a couple of these closely matched, Giselle and Beringer, they were sort of first and second last time at Sandown. Suppose you're going to look elsewhere?
Nothing changes. It's been like 5 or 6 years now since Watsy and I last did one of these shows together. And here he is still tipping hot favourites in big handicaps. I mean, I thought that the line of form to concentrate on was the Setting Sail form from Newmarket. However, there was no way I was going to go wading in on Setting Sail at such a short price when First Sitting has got a huge pull in the weights with Setting Sail for that run. Now, I know Setting Sail appears to have improved since, but First Sitting was trying to give £4 to Setting Sail that day and is now receiving 7, so it's a £11 turnaround in the weight in just 2 starts. It's a huge turnaround in the weight, and that was a sign that First Sitting was coming back to form. It was his first decent run for quite a while, and Chris Wall's team are absolutely flying, and this horse loves the track. He's got some really good form over course and distance. He's won twice over course and distance and was 4th in a listed race at the track early in the season. And I think a reproduction of that sort of form would put him right in the mix here. And I don't think that race would have suited him ideally. It was a sort of tactical 6 or 7 runner small field race. First Sitting is a much better horse off a strong pace in a big field. Now, if you fancy Setting Sail, Watsy, there's no way that you can't be telling me you've got to be having a few quid on First Sitting in receipt of £11. An £11 turnaround in the weights. And Setting Sail is 130 favourite. And First Sitting is 16-1. You've got to be backing First Sitting at the prices, and the form is rock solid. I mean, Setting Sail, as we said, went on to finish second to Pivoine. The horse that was second to Setting Sail that day was Rise Hall, who went on to finish miles clear of the rest when second to Escobar at York, and then won tidily in a good time at Newmarket over the weekend. That Newmarket form is rock solid. I'm convinced that is the key. But Setting Sail at 100-30 as opposed to First Sitting at 16-1 has to be First Sitting for me.
He's really dug his claws in there, hasn't he? Really has, Watsy. Anyway, we'll soon find out. I know you like the sort of unsexy horses, and I guess First Sitting definitely falls into that category. So it'd be interesting to see if he can make the most of that weight turnaround. It's a hefty difference, isn't it? Binners, where did your pin land?
I don't know about a pin, Maddie. I'm on your side. I'm going for Soto Sizzler. Local trainer William Knight, Oisin Murphy on board. As you already mentioned, won at the meeting last year. He's a very consistent horse, and I think he's more than capable of winning this off a marker 93.
Yeah, I think there's more to come from him. Like I say, slightly worried about the drop down in trip, but hopefully they'll get a good pace for him to aim at. And no sort of embarrassment from him to be beaten last time at Kempton. We'll move on to the 225, which is the Qatar Vintage Stakes of Group 2. Some of the best juvenile form on offer here over the 7 furlongs. The Cheshire form comes right into it with Pinatubo, who broke the track record that day, opposing Lope Fernandez. We've also got Visionary, the big sectionals talking horse, and the superlative winner Mystery Power in there as well. So there's something for everyone in here. Binners, read us through the prices.
Okay, we're money back as a free bet on all losers if Pinatubo does the business as favourite, Maddie, at 6-4. 3-1 Visionary, 9-2 Lope E. Fernandez, 11-2 Mystery Power, and it's 11-1 the rest.
Some very talented horses have won this over the years. G-Rod, would you be taking on Pinatubo? He looked very impressive at Ascot.
This is one of the races of the week, isn't it? It's an absolute cracker. We've got probably the most exciting 2-year-olds in Britain running in the same race. That's Pinatubo, who obviously was mightily impressive when slamming Lope Fernandez in that Cheshire, with Lope Fernandez well clear of the rest in a really good time. And then obviously Visionary, who broke the clocks when he won at Newmarket first time out and had all the sectionals lads going absolutely nuts, saying that we'd seen the second coming, and then disappointed next time out at Newmarket, albeit still running a big career best in 3rd in the July Stakes, and appearing to lug a little bit towards his left, I thought, towards the finish, which maybe just cost him the win. I really like the way Visionary goes through his race. He's got a big, long, sort of languid stride, and he powers along, and I can see him from stall 1 just bouncing out there and going a good clip here. He looks like he'll be suited by 7 furlongs. Pinatubo, however, was massively impressive at Royal Ascot. The top 2 in the market are the right top 2 in the market, but I do think that they make the market for the rest, if you know what I mean, because I don't see Lope Fernandez reversing the form. The one I do like is Mystery Power. I think it's been underestimated. Richard Hannon's runner was mightily impressive at Haydock first time out, and then came out and bolted up in the Superlative Stakes. That race has been quite a good guide to this in the past, and easily beat Juan Elcano with the front 2 coming well clear of the 3rd. So I'd be quite interested in him at the prices. And the other one to mention is Positive, who's run only once and bolted up at Salisbury. And straight after the race, Clive Cox said, I think he's the best that I've had, or among the best that I've had. And Clive Cox has had some decent 2-year-olds too. So they must think quite a bit of Positive as well. I like the shape of the race because although the top 2 in the market deserve to be favourite, are exciting, have really strong form, there are ones in below them that have also got equally strong form and maybe don't quite tick the boxes in the same way. They're not the talking horses, they're not the sectional horses. They haven't got the Royal Ascot form, but they've still got rock solid form in there. So I'll be backing Mystery Power and a small each way bet on Positive.
Yeah, I like the sound of that, Watsy. A lot of people are going to be sort of lumping on Pinatubo, I guess, after his electric win at Royal Ascot. But G-Rod makes a good point. We're not sure yet how much there is between him and the rest of them.
No, it's a fair point to make. I do partially agree with G-Rod. I can't see any way that Lope Fernandez can reverse that Ascot form. I don't think he's anywhere near Aidan O'Brien's top 2-year-old. So he's one that I would put a big negative against. I can see Mystery Power and Positive making a jump forward. I mean, but if you're asking me honestly, this is about the here and now. No, there might be a different hierarchy at the end of the season if Positive, it's only his 2nd run tomorrow. So if we're looking at these kind of horses again in September, October time, one of them might made a jump forward and one of them might have plateaued or even regressed. But we're talking about the here and now, and Pinatubo in the first half of the season has been really electrifying. He did it at Epsom beforehand, before he went to Ascot. So he's kind of proven on unusual tracks. Goodwood is an unusual track. Obviously, it's a bit up and down. Epsom is very much like that, particularly for a 2-year-old, but he handled it superbly well and came home clear. And it wasn't a real surprise to me what he did at Ascot. He looked good at Epsom, and he was just kind of confirming that opinion. So I think, we've got to look at this race because it's happening tomorrow. So at this moment in time, yes, I think Pinatubo will win. He's not a great price to do so, but I think he will. Vizinari, as G-Rod said, all the time boys were going crazy about him the first time. I don't think he was overly disappointing next time. I just think he wanted a longer trip. He's got that long stride and he didn't have kind of long enough to be able to show it. And there was a couple of nippier types that got past him and he couldn't fight back. I think over this extra furlong, he will be a player. And I think, if a horse clocks a time like that first time out, then they, it obviously suggests they're very good and they'll probably come back to that at some point in the future. But I think at the moment, with 3 runs under his belt, with the experience, we haven't gone to Ascot, we haven't won so well. Pinatubo does set quite a strong standard, and I'm sorry, G-Rod, I'm not tipping a 50-1 winner to oppose the hot favourite with, but I just think Pinatubo on this occasion will win.
Hey, I'm sure many people will agree with you. What about the guineas then, G-Rod? Would any of these seriously be on your radar for this yet, or would you be keeping your powder dry?
It's a bit early to say, isn't it? I know that Vizinari was around about, I think, 20-1 straight after he won at the Newmarket. I think he came in a bit for that, and then disappointed. He would probably be the more likely one. As I say, he is the big sort of scopy, long striding type here, and you do wonder if Pinatubo is maybe the more 2-year-oldy type, but it's too early to say, really, Maddie.
Yeah, he's certainly a strong finisher, isn't he, Pinatubo? Anyway, as we saw in the Chesham. Binners, I'll go to you for the final word.
Well, I had trouble separating Vizinari and Mystery Power. In the end, I went with Vizinari because of the £3 penalty that Mystery Power carries. The lads have already said about Vizinari. I can add that Mark Johnston, immediately after the July Stakes, did say we'll step him up to 7 furlongs next time. I think he'll be well suited by that, and I think he can give Nick Watt's favourite something to think about.
Okay, at 3 o'clock it's the Qatar Lennox Stakes, another Group 2, and again over the 7 furlongs, this time for the older horses. Now, I'm not sure about you guys, but I looked at this and I thought it was quite straightforward. Some really interesting contenders in there, but I thought Zaki was the main one. Obviously, he's favourite. What do you think?
I'm not sure it's straightforward. I admire your enthusiasm there and your optimism. But
maybe not straightforward. He was the one that jumped out.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. But I don't think there's much between them on ratings. It suggests quite an open race to me. There's a couple of interesting horses in it. So Dancelot is interesting for one. Won the race last season, so he's proven over course and distance. G-Rod mentioned a good run of Ripoff at the weekend. David Ellsworth's had a horror show this season, so. If the run of Ripoff indicated like a turning of the corner, then Sedan Slot was quite interesting in this again. But I think at a bigger price, I'm quite interested in Joseph O'Brien's horse in this, Speaking Colours. I think he's about a 10-1 shot. So, no favourites here for me, G-Rod. But I think he's quite interesting. He's never been over this trip before. He's always been at 6 furlongs, but he ran in the Diamond Jubilee a couple of starts ago that Blue Point won. Finished 4th in that. He's a 50-1 shot that day, but he finished a really good 4th and a running on 4th as well. And then Joseph O'Brien brought him out quite quickly at the Curragh, and he won. He didn't win particularly impressively, so you're kind of thinking, it left you a bit nonplussed. But I think the trainer said afterwards that he was brought back a bit quickly after Ascot, so might not possibly have been at his best. And I think just on that Royal Ascot run, he is quite interesting because for all the world he looked like he might easily get another furlong. I think there's a good chance of him getting it at Goodwood. I think he's bred to get 7 furlongs. So on paper, the trip shouldn't be an issue. And there's very little on ratings between most of these runners. And I think he's only about £2 off the top rated. So he's bang there. He's good enough if he can eke out a little bit more improvement for this trip. So I think a decent-ish price. I think it's quite interesting.
Yeah, lots of Royal Ascot form advertised here. Space Traveller, the Jersey winner, he's another strand of that form. Binners, what price can we get on Speaking Colours and the rest?
Well, Speaking Colours is an 11-1 poke, Maddie. 9-4 Zaki favourite, 7-2 Hey Gammon, 11-2 Sedan Salot, 6-1 Space Traveller, 7-1 Soudoir, and then it's 11 bar.
Yeah, an open race, G-Rod. Where do your loyalties lie?
Yeah, really nice to see that Watts has actually put some work into this one rather than just
you can't moan at 11-1
going for the favourite. No, absolutely. I thought that Zaki was a very opposable favourite. His best form is over further. He's dropping back to 7 furlongs here. He has run over a mile and a quarter last season. He has a really bad habit of missing the break. Now he is drawn stall 10, which is an absolutely horrible draw over 7 furlongs at Goodwood.
You're rubbish in my thoughts on this. I've changed my mind already.
He's brutal, isn't he? He is brutal.
They will, I'm almost certain that they will miss the break because he does generally do that, and he will be on the back foot early. I'm sure Ryan Moore will move him towards the inside. And then it's a case of whether the gap's open and Ozaki is good enough to take them. And I'm not convinced that he is. The one that I see making the running is Hager Man under Frankie from stall 5. That one ran an absolute stormer last time out at Curragh behind Romanised, and they set a really good pace there. And he did best of those to race up the pace. I think Hager Man's going to run really well without winning. The one that I think is going to come late, just like last year, is Sir Dancelot for David Ellsworth. This one has got a good draw in stall 2 and should get a nice toe into the race. He overcome an awful lot of trouble in running last season to win the race. And he was an eye-catcher first time out in the Lockinge, finished 7th, but was bang there a furlong out, didn't stay. He was right alongside Romanised at the time, and Romanised finished 4th. And as I've already said, Romanised beat Hager Man last time out. So on a strict interpretation of the 7 furlongs at the Lockinge, I think Sir Dancelot and Romanised are of a similar ability at this distance, which would give me Sir Dancelot beating Hager Man. Comes here off an absolutely rubbish run last time out at York. However, it was over a mile on soft ground. Absolutely no chance of staying a mile on soft ground, Sir Dancelot. So back on better ground, over 7 furlongs. He's got his ideal trip, track, ground combination for the first time this season. I think Sir Dancelot will weave his way through late under Gerald Mosse.
Okay, nice tactical analysis there. Binners, who's your selection finally?
I'm going for Hey Gammon. Maddie, I thought he was very unlucky in the Paddy Power Minstrel Stakes. Lost the right front shoe during the race. The form of his win in France before that is working out brilliantly. The second and third of both won, and the fourth that day was third behind one of the other two. So, Hey Gammon for me.
The highlight on day 1 is the Qatar Goodwood Cup Stakes over the 2 miles. Stradivarius aiming for his 3rd win in the race after scoring in 2017 and again last year. He's now unbeaten in his last 7 runs. Looked pretty good at Ascot, getting himself out of a sticky situation, as he always tends to do. Binners, I'll go to you first for the betting and your selection.
Yeah, can Stradivarius do it again, Maddie? 8-11 favourite, 7-2 cross counter, 5-1 DXB, 16 Wells Fargo and Dashing Willoughby, and it's 20-1 bar. Stradivarius obviously has huge credentials, but I'm going to take him on. Don't want to tip an odd-on favourite. Going to go for DXB. This horse likes Goodwood. He won his maiden here. He was 2nd in the Golden Stakes last year, and he gave Stradivarius something to think about at Ascot in the Gold Cup. And on a different track, you never know, he might turn the form around.
Yeah, I kind of want something to really put it up to Stradivarius, because I'm getting a bit bored of seeing him winning everything now. Maybe that's a bad sort of trait of mine, but he's clearly an exceptional horse. But I really want a good battle, almost like maybe I'm getting a bit greedy after the King George Watsy. But who do you think can put it up to him? I
think you'll get a battle. I think this is his hardest race that he'll experience, or he will have experienced for some time. He's got DXB reopposing him again. As Binners said, he's proven on the track, 2 really good runs there, 1 win, 1 second. There's a few unexposed ones there who could improve for the trip, like Wells Fargo. I'd be very interested to see how he goes. He'd always been highly rated. Injuries have kind of, robbed him of some of his potential big days, like in the Ledger last season, for example. But I wouldn't put it past him to improve massively for the step up in trip. I think the step down in trip is absolutely perfect for cross counter. I don't think he quite saw out the 2.5 miles last time. I think they were worried about it beforehand, and that showed in the way that he was ridden. I don't think he did quite see it through. We know that he's got absolutely no problem with 2 miles whatsoever. Melbourne Cup winner last season, and the really, really top class there, I think. And if you fancy DXB, then you go back to this meeting last year when they ran in the Gordon Stakes. Cross counter absolutely pulverised him. So he's completely proven on the track as well. You're right what you say, Stradivarius does find a way to get the job done. He's not flashy, but that probably has enabled him to build up this sequence, that he doesn't take more out of himself than necessary. That's why, him and the enables of this world are able to keep on doing it. So it's not going to be easy. He's not going to be he's going to be a very tough nut to crack, rather. But I think back over 2 miles, this might just tip the scales in favour of cross counter, and we haven't even come to G-Rod selection yet. So, he's got another one to throw into the mix. So this will not be easy for Stradivarius, despite the odds-on quotes.
Yeah, Tom Siegel, one thing he's very keen on is the 3-year-old allowance that they get at this stage of the season, G-Rod. I know you're keen on one, and I sort of am as well, but I'm not sure which way I'm going to go yet. Talk us through your fancy.
Yeah, the way I see this race is obviously Stradivarius is going to be very difficult to beat. He is an absolute win machine. But cross counter, I think, can get closer to Stradivarius. He did best of those to come from off the pace. Ascot and the quicker ground will suit him. But those three, cross counter, DXB and Stradivarius, take out a huge chunk of the market. And the 3-year-olds are getting £15 in weight for age. And they've got quite a decent record in this race. I think even a few years ago, we even had Vive Mafi, who was rated like 80 odd, finishing in the first 6, getting a huge chunk of weight. Obviously, Stradivarius won it as a 3-year-old. And in that same year, Desert Skyline was 3rd as a 3-year-old, and he was by no means an outstanding stayer. So I don't think that if as a 3-year-old in this race, you have to be an outstanding stayer to win it. And I like Dashing Willoughby for Andrew Balding, who won at Royal Ascot and won the Queen's Vase. Stayed on very strongly that day, over 1 mile and 6 furlongs. Looked to really relish the step up in distance and the easy ground. Last time out, went in against his elders, was beaten by Communique, but that was a really, really good run. Dropped back to 1.5 miles on quick ground, because all of Dashing Willoughby's best form is with a little bit of cut in the ground and over further. And I think that Dashing Willoughby is open to any amount of improvement now he goes up to 2 miles. So you've got the combination of the potential for a huge improvement and a huge weight pull with those at the head of the market. I think he's a really good each way bet, Dashing Willoughby. The ground should suit him. It's good at the moment, and there's some showers forecast. I doubt it will get on the soft side, but it certainly won't be quick, and he should be fine on good ground. I'm quite excited about Dashing Willoughby each way.
Yeah, I backed him at Royal Ascot, so I'm a big fan of his. Funny race that, wasn't it? Because the sort of front three throughout dominated. But I'm sort of Wells Fargo, I think he could run really well as well. Dashing Willoughby, I'm probably going to be forced to back both of them, truth be told. But surely it will be a tough test for Stradivarius. And as you mentioned, G, very wise to point out that 3-year-old allowance that they get, because it's certainly a lot, and they do have a great record in the race. And on that note, we'll take a quick break before we tuck into the rest of the card.
Check out Paddy's Rewards Club. Simply place 5 bets of £10 or more across any sport in a week, and you'll get a free £10 bet the next week. T&Cs apply. 18+. BeGambleAware.org.
Welcome back to this final instalment of the Monday Postcast. Now, the rest of Goodwood's card is what we're going to talk about now. The 410 is a maiden over the 6 furlongs. Now, no prices for this just yet, but they will be up a little bit later on, so keep your eyes peeled. Now, Best Solution has been the best horse to win this in recent years. That was back in 2016, a subsequent Grade 1 winner in Australia. So I'm quite interested to see how Godolphin Lost in Time goes here. He'd be the obvious one, I suppose. Second at Chelmsford last time. Could they have another star on their hands, Watsy?
Yeah, they could do. It's a difficult race to preview this. There's not a huge amount of form to go on. I doubt it's going to be one of the most popular betting heats of the day. Of those with form, I thought Cobra Eye was quite interesting. The John Quinn horse, Frankie Dettori, booked good second at Haydock first time out. It's got the right entries later on, entry in the Jim Crack. And several of those other big, like the Redcar 2-year-old trophy, big kind of pots. He's in most of them. And like I said, solid run last time out. Beat the fifth horse there. Was a good job. It was a good job, Gower, that's in this race as well. Back in 5th that day as well. So expect that one to confirm the form. And I think, when you go to a track like Goodwood, you have to be good to win first time out. I think, any kind of experience when you come to a course like this, it's good. So the fact that he's had a run does put me, sway me towards him rather than one of the newcomers.
Okay, do you agree with that? What sort of approach would you take in maidens and looking at horses that were unexposed at a track like Goodwood?
always tough. Obviously, a good point that Watsy makes for a change in that it is quite difficult for unraced juveniles on tracks like this. I remember a colleague of mine, James Pyman, running out a few stats a few years ago now. I mean, we're going back quite a few years, and him saying, that the horses that had made their debuts in Glorious Goodwood Maidens first time out and then gone on to win first time out turned out to be pretty useful. I think Amirat was one of those who won a 1,000 guineas. So it is going to take a useful newcomer to win this race. I would rather go with those with the experience, and I do think that the race that will prove the key to this is the one that was won by Treble at Haydock a few months, might have been this month, don't know when it was. It was a good race. They ran a really good time for juveniles that day, and the second was Cobra Eye, who I think will be favourite here, and the fifth was Good Job Power. Now, this is a really difficult one for me to weigh up because I like the way that Good Job Power went through that race. He travelled really well through that race on the wrong side of the track. He was on this stand side of the track and the others were more towards the centre, and Cobra Eye was with them. And I thought Good Job Power travelled like a really smart horse and like he would go at a track like Goodwood nicely. And he's a Richard Hannon trained juvenile. They always improve loads for their first run. And I thought he wasn't given a hard time once his chance had gone. And I thought he had the chance to make a big jump. And I would tip him, but I'm a bit worried about the draw. Now, they're drawn, absolutely. You couldn't get them further apart, Cobra Eye and Good Job Power. And Good Job Power is right on the stand side in stall 11. And Cobra Eye is drawn in stall 1 towards
the middle's the
centre.
place to be then.
And I think that you want to be in the middle. I could be wrong, but I have seen them power up the stand side rail, but usually only when it's really soft ground. I think you want to be more towards the middle. And I just wonder if the same thing that happened at Haydock might happen here again. Good Job Power might be on the wrong side of the track, and as a result Cobra Eye might get the run on him from stall 1. And it's a shame because I know Cobra Eye is going to be fairly short for this race with Frankie on, but I do think Cobra Eye will probably win. It depends on the price on Good Job Power. If he was anywhere near double figures, I might be interested each way, but he won't be.
Okay. You can't have a go at Watsy then. You've just put up a favourite, well, a likely favourite yourself, so shame on you, G-Rod. No, I'm joking. Binners, who did you think could have the measure of this maiden stakes?
Well, I hope Graham's right because my selection Impressor is drawn number 6. I always keep an eye on Marcus Tregonning juveniles at Glorious Goodwood. His late great mentor, Major Dick Hearn, used to think it was an absolute disgrace if you didn't have a winner at Glorious Goodwood, and hopefully Marcus Tregonning can get on the board with his footsteps in the sand colt Impressor.
Okay, thanks, Binners. We'll move on to the 4:45 now, the Chelsea Barracks handicap. 5 furlong sprint this, lots of old favourites in here, the likes of Duca Ferenzi, Muthmir and Poyle Vinny, some veterans. But it's been a graveyard for favourites in recent years. Last year it was won by a 16-1 shot, before that 33-1, before that 13-2, a little bit shorter, and then 14-1 back in 2015. This is the sort of race I hate, G-Rod, because sprint handicaps for me, I just find sometimes you can get really funny results and I never seem to be on the right horse. What advice would you have for me at Goodwood? Sticking towards the centre again?
Yeah, I really like these sorts of races at Goodwood. My favourite types, really, the really tough, difficult handicaps. At Goodwood they're going to go a good pace because it is downhill for the first part of these sprint handicaps, and I really do fancy one here. It's drawn in stall 1 out in the middle, Line of Reason. It was very disappointing last time out at Ascot, but I'm willing to forgive that run because his previous 2 starts were really eye-catching. You won't see a horse finish much quicker at Newcastle than Line of Reason did to finish 6th there at I think it was the plate meeting. He was making ground hand over fist, and then built on that the next day at York when running a very, very similar race. Was travelling nicely, couldn't really get a run, and then when the run came, really finished off well to come 3rd. I'm going to forgive him the poor run last time at Ascot because I think this race might be run to suit him. As I say, they will go a good pace. He needs a good pace to aim at. They will be downhill all the way, so they're going to be blasting away up front. They might be vulnerable late. Line of Reason will be coming home strongly. He's a double figure price. I'll be very disappointed if he isn't placed. I think he's a good each way bet, Line of Reason.
Okay, still no betting on this one, but as you say, could well open at a big price. What's he?
I think the old boy at the top of the handicap, Muthmir, might run a big race in this. I mean, you know, age has probably blunted him slightly, otherwise he would have been in the King George, because that's the race he has been running in recent seasons. And last year he was third behind Batash, albeit he's beaten 4 lengths, nothing got near Batash, but it's still in the context of this race, you know, a decent effort. And he's got numerous decent good runs at Goodwood to his name. I think he's won the King George in previous years. He's run really well in the Stewards Cup. So obviously no issues with the track at all. I'm interested they're keeping him going. It'd be easy to retire a horse like this if they thought he wasn't keen or wasn't interested anymore, because obviously he's got, you know, he's had more of his career than he's got left in front of him.
Frustrating for a lot of people, hasn't he?
Well, he might have been, but I mean, he's been in at the coalface against some really good horses in recent times. Like I said, against horses like Batash, where, you know, he probably just falls between 2 stools, where he's not quite good enough to take on horses like that. And age now certainly means he's not good enough to do that. But he's starting to come down the weights. He was only beaten a length in the dash earlier in the season at Epsom, behind Ornate. So obviously not been very far at all. And I think he's offered £2 or £3 lower mark this time. And I think, like I said, it would be easy to retire a horse like this. Connections obviously think he might have something left to give. Another one of these kind of races in him. And I don't think it's beyond him at all to run a big race off top weight.
Getting dangerously well handicapped now, old Muthmir. Binners, what did you think?
I'm going for Scott Dixon's Dark Shot, Maddie. This one's been knocking on the door of handicap, second 3 times in them this season. Was second, held the same position in a listed race last time. He's gone up £8 without winning, but I think he still might be capable of winning off this sort of mark.
Okay, thanks, Binners. The final race we're going to cover is the 5:15. It's the Unibet Fillies Handicap 0 to 95 over the mile. Binners, no prices obviously, but I'll go to you first.
Okay, this time I'm going to go for Roger Varian Soleil, Maddie, with Andrea Azzini on board. She couldn't quite get to the winner last time at Newmarket over 7 furlongs. And I think this mile of Goodwood will be absolutely perfect for her.
Okay, the one I landed on, for what it's worth, was Chaleur, 4th last time on seasonal reappearance at Newmarket. Was a really good juvenile. I think this step up to a mile could suit. She's quite a strong travelling type. I think they tend to do quite well at Goodwood. Hope I'm getting that right. I'll go to you first, G-Rod.
Yeah, I thought it was a really, really interesting race. And the draw will play a big part here. In the last few seasons, the only horse to win it from a double figure stall was Move Swiftly, and that obviously went on to win a Group 2 this year at Royal Ascot. So you have to be pretty smart to overcome a high draw, and that is my only concern with Soleil, Paul's selection, who I do really think is the best horse in this race, but she will have to be very smart to win this from stall 11, and it was just enough to put me off Soleil. There's a few other interesting runners. Nkosi for William Haggis, also trained Move Swiftly to win this last year. He's a runner, and Warning Fire for Mark Johnston, who I can see blasting from the front. And
He does so well at this track, doesn't he?
He does fantastically well at this track, and this is an ideal sort of Goodwood horse for him. Drawn well on the inside, and Warning Fire's only got 1 round running. She blasts from the front. She's got a really good attitude. I can see her getting them all at it. And then Clara Peters coming through late to steal it from her for Gary Moore and Silvestre de Souza. Drawn 3 nicely on the inside, a good draw around here. This one was a huge eye catcher over the course when it actually beat the horse of Richard Hannon's into 4th. Al Misila, easily. Absolutely flew home that day when finishing 2nd over the course, well ahead of Al Messalar, giving Al Messalar weight. So there's no reason why Al Messalar should reverse that form, especially from a wide draw in stall 13. Clara Peters last time out bounced right back to form, showing another good turn of foot to win nicely at Newmarket on the July course, which is a very similar track to Goodwood. It is downhill all the way in Newmarket July course until the last furlong, which is uphill. And I think Clara Peters can weave her way through that inside passage for Silvestre de Souza and Gary Moore.
Okay, plenty more chances in this. What's he as you'd expect? Who do you think is going to be the winner?
I was quite interested. G-Rod mentioned Morning Fire there. I was quite interested in her. had to do an analysis on one of her wins a couple of starts ago, and she's obviously at the very top of her game at the moment. I just thought this was might be a bridge too far for her. I thought the races that she has been winning have been slightly easier than this, and this might just require a bit more of her. So I could see her going very well, but then maybe something coming to do her. I was quite interested in Leia Lena. Now, consistency isn't her strong point at all. She went to Royal Ascot last time. I think she was 10-1 to win the Sandringham. Put up no show at all. So you're taking a bit on trust there. But if you go back to her previous start when she won at Nottingham, the form of her win there has worked out really well. There's a horse in third there called Juneflower, who was quite well beaten that day. Won her last 2 starts, won the listed race last time out, so it shows the form in a really good light. Yeah, exactly. So I think that does show Leia Lena in a much better light, and I'm always willing to forgive these horses a bad run, particularly if it happened at Royal Ascot, when you don't know if the buzz of the occasion might just got the better of them, particularly if they're lightly raced, and particularly if they're fillies as well. She might not have run to her best, and I prefer to take a chance on a horse like that who's got it in the locker to win one of these, or even if she doesn't produce it every single time, than one who, like Warning Fire, who maybe has to find a bit extra. So think of Leia Lena as on a going day and she's on her game. I think that Nottingham run, that win 2 starts ago, I think she's right in the mix for this.
Now it's time to nail down the punters' naps.
This will not be beaten.
I'll kick us off with my old favourite in the 150 at Goodwood, Soto Sizzler. I'm hoping he can get me off to a flying start. What's it? I'll go to you next.
I would like to say Setting Sail, because G-Rod will be absolutely fuming when he wins the first, and he'll owe me an apology. But in reality, I'm going to go for the big race, which is the Goodwood Cup. I think Cross Counter has got a fantastic chance. Okay,
feature race of the day. And Binners, we'll go to you before we go finally to G-Rod.
Hey Gammon in the Lennox Stakes, the 3 o'clock Maddie, to keep up James Tate's rich vein of form that he's in at the current time.
He certainly is. Best of luck with that, Binners and G-Rod.
Line of Reason in the 4:45 at Goodwood each way. Be very disappointed if I'm not picking up place money at least on Line of Reason in that 4:45.
Excellent. Fingers crossed we can get a decent price on him. That's all we've got time for today. Do remember we're recording Postcast prior to each day at Glorious Goodwood, and we'll also be previewing Galway as well. Best of luck with your bets this week, and we'll see you soon.
Paddy Power Games has over 250 of your favourites to play online, and we're going to attempt to name them all in this 10-second ad before the T's and C's kick in. There's Blackjack, 18+, begambleaware.org.